Hi folks, this is Klaus at Top Hydraulics. We will show you today how to remove and replace the hinges, the hydraulic hinges for the convertible top on an E85 soft top Z4 convertible. We'll show you pretty much every step of the way so that you can do this job with confidence yourself. So after you watch this video, you can decide whether you can do this yourself or not, and I'll bet you can do it. It's not terribly difficult. You just want to follow instructions and not take yourself too seriously. If you get mad or stressed out, then you may drop bolts and pins and get yourself all tangled up. But altogether, this is a very doable, do-it-yourself job. If you had this done in a shop, or if you are a shop, you're going to take about 8 hours the conventional way, where one takes off the top, then replaces the hinges and puts the top back on. And that is very reasonable if you're going to replace the soft top at the same time. But we're very proud of coming up with a procedure here that allows you to take the hinges off without taking the whole top off. Instead, we'll position it such that you can take the hinges out and replace them, and we even have a super slick procedure for refilling the pump way down here in front of the wheel well. A procedure to refill the pump and the hinges and the hoses with fluid without taking the pump out. We think it's slick. Judge for yourself, and hopefully you'll enjoy what we're going to show you here. Now let me show you these hinges that I'm talking about. The problem on the E85 convertible is, well, it's an awesome car, and what's coming up now these days that the car is about 20 years old is the seals in these convertible top hinges start leaking because they are made of an old-fashioned seal material, polyurethane, which decays with time. And now with these cars 20 years old, these hinges leak. What you find is, well, your top makes weird noises. It doesn't move all the way. The pump is aerating, and that is because it's running out of fluid. Your system has lost oil that is actually leaking out of these hinges. At Top Hydraulics, we replace and upgrade all seals in these hinges with more modern material. So we put modern cup seals in here as the rod seals, and we replace the gland seals, even the port seals where the hoses go in, and the piston seals. And we are certain that we make these parts better than new inside, but at a fraction of the price. Plus, with this video, you learn how to do the job yourself. If you do it our way, where you don't take the top off, then actually one person can do this. Hopefully, one person can do it in an afternoon. Take your time, take a whole day. You still saved a lot of money and aggravation doing this yourself, and you'll be proud of the job you did. Again, you can do it. It's not difficult. Just follow instructions and don't take yourself too seriously. Okay, let's remove some trim. First the speaker cover, then a vent cover and plug above it, then the covers above the hinge here, and yet another cover on the hinge where the bolts are hiding that connect the soft top. To remove the speaker grill, just get a tool, ideally a soft top removal tool, behind the plastic. It really only takes pressure to undo all these tabs, and the hinge cover comes out easily. Next, we take out 3 Phillips bolts that need to be taken out so that we can move this piece of trim a little bit later to get access to the wires that go to the motor and sensors. Later on, we will be removing, unclipping 3 connectors on the electrical system. That's all that needs to be done electrically here. To remove the vent cover, we pry down from the top, push on the top tab, it comes out, you lift it out. 2 tabs that stick down on the bottom and 1 more elastic one on top. Same for the, not quite the same, easier on the button here that has equal tabs all around. You just pry behind it and it comes out. Then we have a cover directly on top of the hinge cylinder. We get our tool under it, pry up in the rear first, unhook it in the front, easy peasy. Now we get to this rubber corner molding, weather stripping. It has one rubber hook that is in a hole in this molding, and we just need to pry behind that and get it loose, get it out. Here you see this rubber hook, and next we pull up. The trick is there is a plastic piece behind this underneath the rubber that I'll pry under, and you'll see in a moment after I've done this and loosened it up. Actually, one trick now is to pull forward and up, and here it goes. We have a piece of plastic with two hooks in it that hold in the bracket on the hinge. Now there is some glue behind here, so you'll have to pull. You may have to replenish this glue with RTV later when you put everything back together. That's practically your last step. Or if the glue is still good, it'll just stay in place the way it was before. One more step, one more little cover to take off. Cover on top of the hinge. It again has two simple prongs in it. 3 Torx bolts to get out. One Torx T20 that attaches the interior quarter panel to a bracket on the hinge. Just a T20, easy to take out. Then what I find important is to loosen these 2 Torx T40s. They can be quite tight and they can require a lot of torque to get loose. And again, while this hinge is on here really tight, before we loosen any bolts that fasten the hinge to the chassis, it's good to get these 2 bolts loose. Let's do it. I'm going to take these bolts out most of the way right now, but not all the way. Then we move on to the next one. The next one will be the fun one, breaking a bolt. So now for the fun part. Let me explain why we're going to have this fun. If we want to remove the hinge without taking the top off, we have to disconnect the pump housing from the hinge. This is the left side convertible top hinge with a pump attached to it, the way it's inside your car, and I'm just trying to demonstrate how the pump is attached to the hinge, that is with one 4mm bolt. The main reason this bolt is here was for manufacturing of the car. The manufacturer found it an easy way to attach this to one big unit that they would drop into the car. There's no harm done if you break this bolt and you don't replace it afterwards. If you want to be perfect about it, you could find a way to do this, but I don't think it makes sense. So the way to break the bolt is to slide something down from above. You're having your left side fender here, and with some buffer in between, and you get to slide a screwdriver exactly on top of this bolt and whack it a few times. First the bolt will bend a little bit, then it'll break, and after that you can pull the hinge up while the pump stays down in the car. Let's go do it. So we take a flashlight, shine down here, familiarize ourselves with what we're seeing. We're seeing down here the plastic cover for the pump that I just showed you, and then we see that the cover is sliding on a hook, and below it is the bolt we want to break. My screwdriver happens to be 8 inches long, which means this bolt is about 7 3/4 inches from the very top of the hinge. We come in at a slight angle and we wedge really the screwdriver. In the end, we wedge it between a pump cover and an inside plastic fender cover. If you turn the screwdriver perpendicular to the bolt, then it's pretty easy to hit it. Now, the bolt in our video has a washer on it. Not all of these pumps have a washer on the bolt. It's equally easy to break the bolt whether there's a washer on there or not. Basically, if there's a washer on there, you can just hit the washer. It's nice and big. It takes a few extra taps because there's more buffer there. As you tap down the screwdriver, hit it pretty hard. The first hit, you establish that nothing is slipping. You hit it again, you may see things bending already, and then you hit it really hard and your washer is going to start flying because the bolt just broke. Nothing's going to get damaged if you know what you're doing, and we're showing you exactly how to do it. So I got my screwdriver in place right there, and I whack it once. That's to make sure things don't move out of the way. Yep, everything's good. Then I whack it one more time. That makes the bolt bend. And I whack it really good, and the bolt is broken. So the bolt is broken. Now let's make sure we pop that plastic housing of the pump off the hinge. We stick our screwdriver in there one more time and push down on it a little bit, get it out of the way. We push the pump housing all the way towards the outside as far as we can to make sure it's disconnected from the hinge when we pull the hinge up. So here's our pump and hinge set up one more time. We come down with a screwdriver to knock off this bolt, and we come in at a bit of an angle. Ideally, this one has a washer on it. Ideally, we hit the washer pretty much on center. Tap to make sure nothing slides. Hit it harder. You see that the bolt is bending. There it is. Next, we will remove some wires from the car, the wires that are attached to the hinge. We pull the rubber welting or weather stripping, pull the panel forward that we had previously loosened the bolts on, and for your practical purposes, just a little spacer on the bottom of the panel will do, so you have a couple inches of clearance to get your hand in here. For the video, we've undone some more tabs up here so that we can pull the panel forward. Not necessary for you, we're just creating a little more room here. Getting this panel out of the way so you can see it better in the video. We have 1, 2, 3 connectors that we want to get out of the way. White one, black one, and the forward connector on the top control unit. To get the first 2 out here, we use a screwdriver to pry their holder off the chassis. Real simple, just plain tabs that will slide in again later. To get the connectors removed from each other, you squeeze on the bottom and pull, squeeze on the bottom and pull. Now they're still both connected to this holder. To get them off the holder, push the tab to the side, slide it out. Push the tab to the side, slide it out. Put the base back in so it doesn't get lost. Later on, when you reinstall, you just slide everything back on. That leaves one last connector, which is the forward one on the control unit. You push on the front of on the inside front of the tab. There's right here. It squeezes in, releases. You pull the connector out. Now you have all the wires for the hinge freed up. We'll pull up in these 2 places. 1, 2, and we have the harness free and clear. Next, we remove 2 Torx T40 bolts that fasten the hinge to the chassis. Torx T40 is a little rubber cover that we take out on the bottom. The bottom bolt here needs to be loosened only 3 to 4 turns. It's on there pretty tight, so take some torque. 1, 2, 3. 3 to 4 turns. Okay. The upper one needs to be taken out all the way. Now that one, if you're lucky, stays on your wrench. It doesn't this time, so I'm taking some needle nose pliers and pulling this bolt out. To remove the two Torx T40 bolts that we've loosened already, well, we just unscrew them. The one thing I want to point out to you, there's a little aluminum plate between the top of the hinge and the soft top, and that likes to fall towards the back and you might have a hard time retrieving it there. Let's see, no, I can just lift the top and get it with my fingers. Release the trunk lid, go to the trunk, open the trunk, pull the emergency actuation or pressure relief lever for the pump, which is this red one here. You pull it out, rotate it counterclockwise, and once it points down, it stays extended, which relieves pressure from the pump and allows you to manually move the top. The key to removing the hinges without removing the whole top is that we're able to push the top back. In order to push the top back from the hinges, we need to lift it a little manually and block it. We have a piece of styrofoam here. You could also use a cardboard box and wrap it with a towel or anything that won't scratch up your trunk. Once the top is raised like this, linkage in the top frame is such that we can push it away backwards from the hinges, creating room. So we have removed the matching trim on the right side, same as we did on the left side. The easier part is there's only one wire on the right side. We have this time taken out the two Torx T40 bolts on top of the hinges already. Now we're going to lift this up with a backward motion, and that's what this spacer was all about. Lift up, lift up, lift up the top until we have tension on here. It is as high as it'll go. Now we actually have enough room to have this dog bone here rest on the inner fender front corner. Okay, this is secure. It helps us deal with the same thing on the other side. Let's go. Now let's lift the left hinge and soft top up and have it rest on the inner fender corner. To remove the serrated pin on the lower control arm, we squeeze in our small flat screwdriver. We take out the circlip. Then we either pound on the pin or we lever it out. We would be levering against the small arm, and it's not quite doing it for me now, so we'll go to the pounding instead. Put our screwdriver or a drift pin or similar on here and go whack it. There it goes. Now we want to find it's half out. If we now move the top around, we'll find a position in which there is little tension on the top. We can pull the pin out, or we get the pin a moment later after the second pin is out. That's equally easy. To remove the pin for the upper control arm, we use a Torx T30 and unscrew this guy. Now this pin will not always come out easily. It moves pretty easily for me now. I can pull it out by hand. If that didn't work, we would have to take pliers and then we'll just pull it out. Next, we'll cut 3 zip ties and remove the hoses from the hinges. It's important on the left side hinge to cut the upper zip tie that ties the lower hydraulic hose to the upper one, because if we don't cut that zip tie and lift the hinge higher than the dog bone position, then we put a lot of stress on the hose, and we want to avoid that. Pull the hinge out of here, and remember the position of these zip ties. There's another one that ties the upper hose to the lower one. So we had one zip tie tying the lower hose to the upper one. That zip tie went through this hydraulic line clip, and we cut the lower one that ties the upper hose to the lower hose, and down here. That removes the harness from the hinge. Now we can twist the hinge out of the way. We want to be careful not to stress these hoses too much. They're pretty tough, but we don't want to abuse them. You can see plenty of water, a mixture of water and oil on the bottom of this hinge that was both leaking oil and had water intrusion here. So to remove the upper clip, we first need to pull this old zip tie out. Then we just lever the clip out, pull out the hose, and on the lower one we use looks like 3mm Allen wrench, and unscrew the lower clip. Oop. It's not 3, it's apparently 2.5. Wow, this one is on there tight. Now when there's a lot of corrosion, you may strip your Allen wrench. So instead of using an Allen wrench, you want to first break the bolt loose with pliers or vice grips, then unscrew it. Take the clip off. Plenty of rust on here. Now this one is actually a reusable. It only looks bad, it's not that bad. If you have even worse corroded clips, ask Top Hydraulics and we'll include one in your shipment. This hose fitting is pretty seriously corroded, but believe it or not, it still is fully usable. If it was falling apart, Top Hydraulics could make you new hoses, no problem. We remove the outer sensor and the upper one because this harness here is going to stay with the top. So we use a Torx T20 to unscrew. Torx T20 number 1. Torx T20 number 2. Torx T20 number 3. Remember this position of the sensors. That's how they go back on. Don't lose the bolts. Keep this bracket on the top sensor, and now we finally can remove the hinge. And there we have our hinge. Ta-da! So, to take the dog bones and the bracket off the hinge, we only need a Torx T40 and a Torx T20. Let's start with the dog bones first. That's easy, just a couple Torx T20 bolts. You got the aluminum dog bone on the outside, and then you have typically 2 or 3 black sheet metal shims behind the dog bone, and those shims, the number of shims there is determined by BMW suppliers as they match up the width of the total frame with hinges to what to the dimensions they were given by the BMW, which width they have to fit into. And so make sure to have the same number of shims under the dog bone as came out. Now the upper bracket here, this Torx T40 can be on pretty tight. Sometimes you have to put a lever on your Allen wrench, or not Allen, Torx wrench. This one is cracking loose on us, then it's a little tight to turn at first with some thread locker in here, and after that it's easy to get this bolt out. Take the bolt out, got the bracket, and now we have a hinge the way BMW would ship it, without any brackets on it, and this is the way Top Hydraulics ships hinges from our inventory first. If you were to send us your hinges first, if you have the time to wait to send them in first, then we rebuild them, then we ship them back, then it's okay to leave the bracket and the dog bones on, because we'll put them back on for you. Either way is good. And well, for completeness, oopsie, we would simply, your next step would be to put the dog bones back onto the rebuilt hinge that came from Top Hydraulics and the bracket, and no need to show you how I fasten bolts, and there you have it. The next step is filling the hinges. Let me show how. The rebuilt hinges we always ship with a couple of 1/8 inch tubing, that's nylon or PVC, 1/8 inch outer diameter, and that happens to fit in really nicely into these ports. The port is where the hydraulic line goes in. When we rebuild these hinges, we put in new port seals that are nice and tight. Actually, our port seals have a shelf life of at least 50 years, believe it or not. We make them extra tight so these will never fail, and big advantage is they will hold these 1/8 inch hoses really nice and tight. What you do is twist and push them in, and you feel them going in really firmly. Now that we have both hoses in the hinge, we stick the hoses in a bottle of fluid, and let me rattle down some part numbers for you. What we're using here is Febi 02615, also called a ZHM hydraulic fluid, and it is identical to BMW and Mercedes fluid. That is Mercedes fluid 000-989-910310 or BMW 5434-039-4395. You could also use Pentosine CH811S. I don't like it because it smells if you have any leaks, and it etches clear coat. Or you could use Pentosine CHF202. And just for completeness, we do have our rebuilt hinges here. BMW part numbers for the right side is 5434-719-3450, and for the left side 5434-719-3449. And as you probably heard me say before, we are proud of the way we rebuild these. We are certain that we make them better than new inside, due to the far superior seals inside. New rod seals where the piston slides through, piston seal, and port seals. They may not be as pretty on the outside as brand new ones, but you don't see them once they're installed in the car anyway. So we believe we have a far superior product at a fraction of the price. Anyway, let's get to it. Fill these hinges. We simply move the arms up and down. And as I'm moving the arms, you're hearing the gurgling. Well, yep, there you can hear it. And we're pulling in fluid and expelling some air. So after we've done this some 3, maybe even 4 full cycles, there's practically no air left in here. It's full of fluid. And we do this with both hinges. If you use our upcoming method of filling the system with a pump inside the car, then you actually want to fill one hinge completely. And on the second one, let me demonstrate, you disconnect the lower arm and move it up so that we actually are sucking a prescribed amount of air back into this hinge, because in the method we're going to show you shortly, where we fill the pump and the hoses inside the car while they're still mounted inside the car, we fill those completely and we reintroduce a certain amount of air here into these hinges. Hope that makes sense. Okay, now we're back at the car and we're going to hook up the hoses to fill and vent the pump. We're on the right side. We need 25 feet of 1/8 inch ID, PVC or silicone hose, any hose that's 1/8 inch ID and not too hard to put on. So if you have 25 feet of hose, then you can cut two 9 to 10 foot long pieces that you attach here and swing over to the other side, and use the rest to make two 2 to 3 foot long pieces that you attach to the other two hose ends from the hinges that we removed. Then we tied all 4 loose ends together so that we can stick them into a bottle together and not one of them accidentally comes up and sucks air. Okay, let me visualize it for you what you're going to do next in the car. Next in the car you will be filling and venting the pump and the hydraulic lines. We have the pump in a vise here just to show you how it works. Seeing is believing, right? As you know, dealing with this pump in front of the wheel well in the car is a big pain. It's in this clunky housing that is very goopy, and if you can avoid taking the pump out, great. So we think we have a great method here. Hope you agree. What we've done is we have the pump with all 4 hoses, and at the end of the 4 hoses, where the hoses would normally go into the hinges in your car, we attached 1/8 inch OD vinyl hosing, and those 4 vinyl hoses are the same length as what you'll be using in the car. We tied together at the end and stuck into a bottle of fluid using our good old Febi 02615 or Mercedes or BMW fluid, and we will be running this pump for 3 minutes. Well, we're using a power supply here, but in the car you can actually just push the button in the car. As long as all conditions are met in the car for that pump to run, it will. And so you may as well run it and push that button for 3 minutes. I will start this now. Now, there was a little bit of fluid left in the pump. You see that fluid is starting to move through these hoses. If your pump was completely dry and the hoses were completely dry, then the pump may not start up right away on its own, and you may have to insert a little bit of fluid through one of these vinyl hoses with using a syringe. Feed a little bit of fluid into the pump, just a little bit to get it going, but normally this will start right up. One thing to make sure of is that the pressure relief valve is released, meaning that it's the red lever that you have in the trunk. You don't want to have it on manual operation but on automatic operation, so you push that lever back in. So while I'm talking here, I've been talking for about a minute. You see that these hoses by now have mostly oil in them, but there's still a bunch of air circling around back into the bottle of fluid. It's basically on one leg pulling in clear fluid with very few bubbles into this reservoir, while there is fluid with more bubbles coming out going into this bottle. The reason we're sucking in some bubbles on the incoming fluid is because we've tied these hoses together so tightly in the bottle that there's some air immersed in the fluid down there. Anyway, as we keep moving here, we run this for 3 minutes, and we are at 2 minutes right now. It appears that not much is happening, only fewer bubbles inside these hoses, but the fluid level in the reservoir isn't really going up. But what you will see is when we shut off the pump and we wait a minute, then this fluid level will go up and up and up, practically all the way to the top, because this pump is actually acting as a vacuum pump. While it is sucking here, it is creating a vacuum inside the reservoir, and as soon as the pump is shut off and these 4 hoses are still stuck in the bottle, this vacuum will suck fluid into the pump. So let's see where we're at. We're at 2 minutes 40 seconds. The ideal runtime is around 3 minutes. You can run as long as 4 minutes, or you could get away possibly with 2 minutes, but better do 3 minutes. Don't run the pump longer than 4 minutes because it tends to overheat, and when it gets hot it doesn't pull vacuum very well anymore. This BMW pump unfortunately is not the highest quality product, and it is not made to run for a long time. So now we'll simply wait a minute or two, and the pump is off. You see still some micro bubbles going through these hoses here, meaning this vacuum is pulling fluid from the bottle into the reservoir. And if we fast forward a little bit, in another minute, you will see this reservoir almost completely full. Here you see it half full, and it'll keep going until it's completely full. And the idea is we have filled our hinges completely, except, as you've previously seen, one hinge had a bit more than a half an ounce of fluid expelled from it. That half volume ounce, meaning 15 milliliters or so of air in the hinge, will later on push this fluid level down again some in this reservoir, and you have the needed amount of air in this reservoir. If we had the hinges completely full of fluid and this reservoir was full, then as the hinges move, they would create far too much of a vacuum in here, or worse, if you try to push more fluid into this reservoir, then that fluid would push into the motor and ruin the motor. That's what we don't want. That's why we showed you previously that we have to introduce a certain amount of air into the hinges to make this whole system work perfectly. Here we go. Would you believe it? This is full to the top, and all of this from just running it for 3 minutes. Once we're reasonably sure that we have almost all air out of the system, when we don't see any major air bubbles moving anymore, all we see is micro bubbles, then we're good to disconnect the motor, let the motor sit for a couple of minutes, and we're reasonably sure that our reservoir is full of fluid, and we can now start reinstalling our hinges. So one way to avoid making a big mess taking these hoses off is we start on the left side, take the first clear hose off the black hose, stick the clear hose in the bottle. Take the second clear hose off the black hose. I don't want to knock this bottle over and have a quart of fluid on my precious soft top. There we go, mess free. Now I walk around, do the same thing on the other side. Hold the bottle with one hand, get the hose, clear hose pulled off, get the clear hose twisted and pulled off. The fitting was rusty and makes it extra hard to slide it on or off. So here we are, have our fluid and clear hoses, and get it out of the way before that drips anywhere onto our precious soft top. Pull it out, rotate it counterclockwise, and once it points down, it stays extended, which relieves pressure from the pump and allows you to manually move the top. To reconnect the hoses, you want to make sure you don't mix them up. You always want to have the odd hose number on top, the even hose number on the bottom at the end of the hinge. That is on the left side for the even number, number 12, and for the odd number, number 11 on top. Same on the other side, number 14 on the bottom and number 13 on top. Now, normally you can see these numbers still printed on the hoses in red ink. If you can't see the ink anymore. There's still an imprint on there. If you still are not sure, there's another trick. The upper hose number 11 or 13 is bent tighter than 90 degrees. It's more like a 75-degree bend to make that hose come closer to the hinge. So put them in the right order, and then we'll lift the top up, push the hinge in, and install the hall sensors. And again, remember, don't move the arms on the hinges before the hoses are attached, because otherwise you squirt fluid out of the hinges that you just painstakingly filled up. Remember, one hinge is full of fluid and one is half full of fluid. Let's get to it. To reconnect the hoses, come in from the inside of the car, put number 12 on the bottom, push it in all the way, fasten the clip with the 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench. Be sure not to drop the clip. You don't want to retrieve it down there with a magnetic tool. And we fasten that clip. Hose number 11 on this end. Push the fitting in all the way. Then we put our clip on. Now we want to be careful not to kink the hoses as we push the hinge down. You remember it was fairly tight to take the hoses out in the first place, and we don't have to recreate the exact zip tie pattern we had before, but let's put one zip tie around both hoses at the same time here. See this? It's going around both hoses. I'm going to partially close it, move it down, tie it up, and these two hoses are now tied to each other pretty much where they were tied before. Then I'm still going to tie the upper hose. Remember, previously this zip tie went through the clip. That's tedious to do. Let's do the zip tie for the hose that's moving up. It's really the lower hose. We'll tie that to the tube coming out of the hinge. We just want to give it some direction. It doesn't need to be tight, but this way it's going to fall into place right. And here we go. Cut this zip tie flush, and we have these hoses in decent order. Remember the hall sensors? There were two Phillips bolts. One Phillips bolt goes on this cable tie right here, and one Phillips bolt went on the hall sensor on the opposite end. And one Torx T20 bolt is used to tie up the plastic holder for the sensor on top. I need to first fasten the bracket for the upper sensor, then reinstall the upper sensor. The way hall sensors work is they detect metal objects nearby, and these sensors have a very short range. So this little arm that is sticking out from the small arm of the left hinge, when it comes near the lower sensor, will indicate to the computer that the top is down, and at that point it'll go into latching it. And conversely, when a metal piece from the top comes near the upper sensor, that indicates to the computer that the top is up and it's time to latch. Remember to put the foam block back into place after you raise the top a little bit in the rear, so that we can push the top back again to make room for the hinge arms to come down. Now the next thing we want to do is install the Torx T40 bolt for the upper control arm. So we wiggle things around until the upper control arm is where it needs to be. So the upper control arm is easy to align if you have the hinge in the what I call dog bone position, meaning resting on the edge of the fender. You can just push this control arm exactly into position, and there my bolt went right in. You can imagine me tightening it. So the pin for the lower control arm is hard to catch in the video because there's the top in the way. So let me visualize it first by holding up a similar frame here. What we're trying to do is get this pin into place, and you will find that while it's not in place, this lower control arm will want to scoot forward and down. In order to get this lower control arm into the right position, we have to yank back a little bit on the top, and that's why it's in that position with the styrofoam or box under the rear, so that we can push it backwards, and then we lift things around such that the lower control arm bushing lines up exactly with the pin that we're putting through here. So let me show you on the car. We have the hinge in the dog bone position, just like we had it before, and I have yanked back on the top. What you want to do is pull on this corner, pull up and mostly back. That pulls the control arms backwards, and you may find the lower arm almost in the right position already. You may find it a little bit too low, in which case you grab it from the inside and try to pull it up until it's in place. I've done that already. I have done this until the bushing in the lower control arm kind of lined up with the hole. Now, in order to get a pin through there, the fit must be almost perfect. So the next step is get a smallish medium flat screwdriver, stick it in through the rear of the hole. There's just enough room to get it through there now. If you want to, you can put something protective on the inner trim piece here so that your screwdriver doesn't mangle it. And now I'm going to maneuver this screwdriver until it looks like it's making the bushing or the control arm line up perfectly with the hole. Get this aligned properly. So I didn't quite let the screwdriver go through all the way. It's sticking in part way, and now my pin is pushing against the screwdriver. I wiggle a few more times and the pin is in place. Now you remember, this is the pin with a serrated edge. Took some force to get it out. Now it also will take some force to get it set all the way. Two ways to do it. You can tap on it, but make sure you don't hit the sensor next to it. Or you could lever off of this upper hinge arm. Now keep in mind that this upper hinge arm is not attached to the top yet, so if you want to do the levering way, then you first need to get the upper two bolts in. So to speed this up, I'll tap in the pin. I'm putting a little protector on the fender here, just a piece of tape, and I'm using a 1/2 inch extension here. 3/8 will work fine. What's nice about an extension is it's nice and solid. There's not as much bouncing as you would get it with a screwdriver. So place this on the pin, a few good taps, and it's in there. And it's in place. Everything looks good here. Ta-da! Remember that dab of grease I told you about? See my screwdriver getting into the photo here. We're looking at the head of the pin that we just inserted from the other end, and you see something green up there. I put some grease on the hinge, and next I'm going to come down with the circlip at the tip of my screwdriver. There you have it. It's a nice, easy, controlled motion. You just slowly slide that clip into place, into the groove, and there it goes. Ta-da! Now, don't despair if your clip slips on you. You can either retrieve it or put in a new one. Remember the aluminum spacer that was between the top of the two hinge arms and the actual soft top? That thing slides around very easily, so one tip would be to put some RTV on it that makes it sticky so that it doesn't slide around. I frankly don't want to take it out again to have it move again, so try to glue that piece of aluminum spacer under the soft top, and if you don't get it in there, ultimately it doesn't really make a big difference. Next step is getting one of these Torx T40 bolts into place and get it in at the right angle so you're not cross-threading. When it feels good, is easy to screw in, then you know you got it right. So we can fasten this one almost all the way, then lift the top up a little bit to get the second one into place. Here's my second bolt. Now these still have some thread locker on them. I don't believe it's necessary to put thread locker on, but if you want to do your job perfectly, put some thread locker on these bolts to make them stay in place forever. However, you torque these fairly well. I don't see them coming loose again. We have the soft top attached to the hinges again. Now we just push the top down into position, fasten the bolt on the bottom that we had originally loosened up. Push the bolt into position, wiggle things around, turn and turn and turn. It's getting close. And there we are, this bolt is tight. Now we just put the remaining trim into position and our top is ready to be used again. So here we are, the trim is back in. Now let's see if that top works. I'll turn my key in the door and we'll keep our fingers crossed. Let's see. And the motor runs, top is raising, top is closing. Next it'll latch in the front. And there we are. Woohoo! So we have just replaced the hinges on this Z4, put the top back on, and now let's see if it works and enjoy the ride. Thanks again for watching. Here we go. Top is unlatched, the top goes down, it'll latch itself in the rear, and we are ready to roll. Bye-bye!